And we are live with another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by Andrew Johnson. Andrew, the first half of the MLB season has concluded as we just had the All-Star break just about 2 days ago wrap up. And now tomorrow, the second half of the MLB season will be getting underway as we get a little bit closer to deciding who will be this year's World Series champion. But it's been a very up and down season for some teams. A lot of teams at the top of the MLB standings have had a very good, successful start to this season. And with the trade deadline now just coming up in just about under 2 weeks, there's going to be some movement around these MLB teams in the next couple of weeks. So we'll have to see how these playoff teams that are currently in position to make the playoffs can bolster their roster and try to make it to the postseason this October.
Yeah, you pretty much summarized it nicely. The only thing I want to add here is there's one or two teams in particular I want to talk about that have they're playing in the same cities on different trajectories right now over the last month and a half. And after the hot start and the slow start both these teams had, it's going to be it'll be very interesting to see what they do at the deadline next week.
I think I know who you're getting about, and I think we'll go into that very, very soon. But this season has really been about, there are definitely some top heavy teams in the MLB. Some of those teams did take a hit the last couple of weeks, kind of went on some losing streaks that have still kept them in position to be atop of their respective divisions, but have also put them in a spot where now they're thinking about they're going to have to make some moves at the deadline to make sure that they don't have another collapse for the second half of the season. So we'll have to see what those teams do. The really only consistent team has been, I would say, the Philadelphia Phillies in terms of they've been good since the beginning of late March, early April, which I know obviously, a lot of the people that listen to the show, even you yourself, Johnson, we don't. I know you guys really don't like to talk about the Phillies, but you have to respect where they come from. They are playing some good baseball right now. We'll talk about them in a little bit. I guess we'll start off with the American League, and we'll go into the American League East. It looked like early on, it looked like the Yankees were going to maybe try to run away with the division after the first couple months they had to the season. They were playing some
and then June hit.
Yeah, pretty much May and June hit for them. It came to a point where, they were hitting fine. They were doing good enough hitting at a point. Their pitching was going phenomenal, and that was without Garrett Cole for most of that stretch too, which is a good sign for that team. Then they got Garrett Cole back. He's been all right. He just had his best start his last time up for the Yankees, but they went, as you mentioned, on a really big decline in the last basic month or two, and because of that, it's allowed Baltimore to get back into first place in the AL East. Now, keep in mind, Baltimore, as of late, has also been on a little bit of a decline. They are 3-7 in their last 10. Overall, their last month of the season has been pretty bad. So they do have a one-game lead in the AL East going into the second half of the season. But both the Yankees and the Orioles have to be very worried about a team that's right behind them in the division. And unfortunately for me, that's the Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox have been, secretly have been doing some good things this season overall. Pitching has done wonders for them. Guys like Jarren Duran, Rafael Devers have been amazing for them in the lineup this season. They're getting great contributions out of their bullpen, and they're only 4.5 games out of the division right now, and they hold one of the final wild card spots. So the Red Sox have a good chance to win the AL East, and maybe we'll make some moves at the deadline. And then to round out the AL East, we have Tampa Bay at an even 500. They might be sellers at the deadline. We'll have to see what they do in the next 2 weeks. And Toronto surely looks to be a deadline seller. It's been a rough going for them. It seems as if, Johnson, that window for them might be overall closed, and they might be trading some of their key assets at this upcoming MLB trade deadline.
Yeah, I would say nobody is really out of the playoffs yet. Even the Toronto Blue Jays, I would still say they have a fair. I still listen, man. You saw, and spoiler alert, I was talking about the Yankees and Mets before.
Yeah, no, I
you saw the Mets, man. The Mets, they're so far behind. All it takes is 1 month of magical baseball, and boom, they're right back in it. 8 games out of 500. Realistically, 8 games out of 500. There's a ton of teams around that 45 to 50 win mark. The Tigers, the Royals, Rangers, Astros. Would you say the Rangers are out of it right now?
I wouldn't say they're out of it just yet because they're
2 games behind the Rangers.
Right. I think the only reason I don't, but here's the thing: the only reason I don't say the Rangers are out of it is because they could still win their respective division. Toronto, in my case, they can win the AL East. It pretty much sums up from there. And having to jump that many teams in the wild card race is really tough. I mean, yes, you could
Listen,
catch
it's
fire.
possible. I'm not saying even not. What I'm saying is it's not over yet.
Right.
It's far from over. And the Orioles are looking. They're starting to slump right now. The Yankees haven't been too
hot. The Red Sox are the only team that's been good.
The only hot team in this division are the Red Sox. And if Blue Jays can just kind of pick it up and take care of business at home, which they haven't this year, so they could just be a good home team for down the rest of the stretch, they could definitely make the playoffs.
I think the one thing they have to look forward to is because the reason why they're being considered as sellers is because Vlad Jr. and Bo Bichette are soon to be free agents. So you kind of want to say to yourself, all right, how much realistically can we think about maybe trying to win a World Series with this roster that we have? We've been going all in pretty much the last couple of seasons, and it just really hasn't worked out for this team. So that's why a lot of people have said that Bichette and Guerrero might be on the move. But you're right. The Mets were in that position not too long ago, about a month ago, it seemed like, maybe 2 months ago. It seemed like the Mets were going to be trading guys like Pete Alonso, and now they're in a different trajectory now after this up past MLB All-Star break. So
yeah, so that kind of sums up the AL East. I would say the no really surprising teams here. I mean, I guess the Red Sox are a surprising team. We thought Tampa Bay would have a chance, which they do.
Yeah.
And we thought it would be an Orioles-Yankees division, which is shaping up to be right now.
I think if you look at the entire AL, I think we'll talk about the next division because there has been a little bit of a surprise in the AL Central. The Red Sox certainly are a surprise just because of how good they've been. I don't think really anyone expected them to be 11 games over 500.
No, this was expected to be the fifth best team, and right now they're the third best team.
And I think disappointment has really obviously been Toronto. I think them being 8 games under 500 and playing this poorly, that has to be, talked about. And even Tampa Bay you could consider a disappointment because they usually find ways to overcome some of the trades and all this other stuff. We
assume Tampa Bay would be third and they're fourth right now, so I guess by definition they're a disappointment, but not by much.
They might be a seller too. The deadline.
There's still a lot of baseball left, so talk to me in August.
Right now, when we move on to the AL Central, I mentioned this before. I think you look at the top 3 teams in the division, and let's face facts. When we went into the season, I think we all
had no expectations.
I think we all expected that. All right, the AL Central winner might win 86 games at most, probably maybe 88 wins at the best. And the Guardians, you could make the case for the Twins, even the Royals are most likely going to all shatter that the season.
I knew the Guardians were going to be good. I said the Guardians, this was their division.
You thought they were going to be good, but I don't think you thought they were going to be this good.
I don't think they'd be 100-win good now. I thought they'd be 88.
They have the best record right now in the American League.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's crazy that we're saying this right now, that the AL Central is one of the most competitive divisions after being a dumpster fire for the last couple of seasons. Right. You still have the White Sox, which are 27-41.
Yeah, the White Sox are
god-awful. I mean, 276 players with higher batting averages than they do have win percentage.
Tommy Pham, I looked at this. Tommy Pham has like a 264 batting average. That leads their team.
And almost a win percentage, so good for Tommy Pham.
I think for the White Sox, obviously, they're going to probably trade Luis Robert and Garrett Crochet at the deadline. So get those 2 guys out of there. They need to be shared upon on a team that's actually got a chance to win a championship or at least make the playoffs in the next year or 2. The Tigers, I think, are still not there yet. I think you're starting to see some inklings of them getting better. But they got to get rid of guys like Javier Baez to at least have a chance. They got to get that money off their board. The Royals have taken that next step as well, but we'll see if they can continue in the second half.
Mentioned this earlier in the year. I said if a certain player could put it together for Minnesota, they would have a good season, and that was Byron Buxton. He's having a great season. Not named an All-Star, but he's been really filling up the stat sheet for this team. He's batting .290, I believe. He's got a couple home runs on the season. He's stealing bases again, so he's been able to put it together, and they've prospered for it. Even though Pablo Lopez has taken a slight step back from last year.
Listen, I think Buxton we knew was a good player, but the only consistent thing was he just could never stay healthy. It's always been injuries.
And that's why.
And I think finally having him back healthy is obviously being crucial to the Twins' success.
Now, Pablo Lopez, if he could just lock it in a little bit more, this could be a very division contender.
Right.
If he could just get back down to his stats that he had last year, because I know he's really suffered with.
He's had a very, very rough season.
Yeah, greater than 5 ERA, really not doing much. He was an all-star last year. He was really great on Miami as well. This is probably the worst year as a professional he's had.
Yeah.
So it can only go up from here? Question mark.
I think if you're Pablo, I mean, listen, you could easily make up for the second half of the season. For the Twins itself, they have to know that they're not really too far up in the wild card because you look at the teams around them. The Red Sox are only a half game back for that second spot. They're only 2.5 up on the Royals, or are not that far behind. Not only in the Central, but in that wild card race. And we'll talk about the Astros in just a little bit about what they've done the last couple of weeks, but the Twins are going to have to be definitely going to have to make some moves at this upcoming trade deadline. Maybe another starter. Most likely, we'll need to get some batters to accompany some of their guys like Correa and Jose Miranda, who's had a
And this is
monster
going to
stretch the
pain
last
me to
couple
say
weeks.
it, but there's two guys that are responsible for their team standings right now in this division for opposite reasons. We've talked about the Guardians, Twins, and White Sox. Time to talk about the Tigers and the Royals. I was really big on both these prospects. If anyone who's ever talked to me, those prospects were Spencer Torkelson and Bobby Wood Jr. Bobby Wood Jr. is, dare I say, the best shortstop in the league by a large margin.
Uh, that's tough.
He is just a phenomenal.
He's a great player.
Great.
I love.
Yeah,
Bobby
he is a
Witt.
great hitter, and he's great defensively.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll make my point. I'll make my my comment in a second.
When's the last time you saw a shortstop just crank home runs like this?
I think it's been a while. I mean, he's the perfect 5-tool player. He has speed. He can play defense. He can hit home runs. He does it all for you. And listen, you know me. I wanted him to win the Derby. I was pulling for him to win. He literally lost by a few inches in that Derby. So we'll break that down just a little bit. Yeah, he's been a huge success for the reason why the Royals are in the position that they are. They kind of falter in like the last month or two, which is why, because they were at one point leading this division, but they're still hovering around this spot. I think the biggest reason why they're at where they're at right now, we saw what happened with Seth Lugo the first 2 months. He was sensational, was probably the Cy Young favorite up until these last 2 months. Last 2 months, he's been kind of struggling, and has been giving up a lot of runs, which has hurt him in that sense, and he could still definitely win the Cy Young. But
the number 2 pick of the 2019 MLB draft,
a former relief pitcher, as well. But yeah, I think the Royals still have a good shot. They're gonna have to see if they make any big time moves at the deadline. They already acquired Hunter Harvey from the Nationals to bolster their bullpen, so maybe that could help them because I know that they've been kind of looking for that lockdown reliever in later games for them. And then you mentioned with the Tigers, I mean, Torkelson, there's still, a good amount of hype for him. At least you have Tariq Skubal for your rotation because he seems to be the Cy Young favorite in the American League. Riley Green's done some great things for you as well this season. I think it's really come down to, for the Tigers, as after Skubal, maybe after Jack Flaherty, you really just need some more pitching. Their bullpen's been on and off this season. They could still definitely make a playoff spot if they wanted to in the second half, kind of how you mentioned with Toronto. But they would have to add some pieces at the deadline, and it has to go into their lineup because their lineup has been a crucial reason why they haven't been winning games this season.
So I want to talk about the 2020 draft because that's what Torkelson was taken number 1 overall by the Detroit. I was going to say the Detroit Pistons, the Detroit Tigers. Excuse me,
not NBA,
not NBA. In that because Bobby Witt went number 2 overall, and Adley Rutschman went before, right? So if you drafted Adley, you're not really like, it's sour
we
grapes,
know,
right?
We know how Adley is. I mean, we know how good he is.
These are the top 5 picks in that draft: Spencer Torkelson, Heston Kjerstad, Max Meyer, Asa Lacy, and Austin Martin.
Yeah, it's not been rough. It has not been.
Heston is finally He's finally come up and he's starting to perform.
He started to do good things for the Orioles.
Max Meyer was looking like he was going to be really good, and then he went on the IL.
Yeah. Austin Martin, I haven't heard of.
Austin Martin is a ghost.
Yeah.
He's a ghost. He was supposed to be one of the most highly touted prospects, and Asa Lacy has never even touched the major leagues, and that pains me to say as a A&M fan.
He didn't get called up by the Royals?
I don't believe so. I've never seen him start. He could have gotten called up, but he's never made an MLB start before.
Maybe as a reliever, maybe he got called up. I could have swore I saw him up at the majors at some point.
So the other notable names in this draft, Reed Detmers, pick number 10. Garrett Crochet, like you said before,
yeah, he's been
11. And then you have to go all the way down to pick number 30. And guess who had this pick? It was the Orioles again. They took Jordan Westberg. So it looks like if Heston Kjerstad continues what he's doing, I know it's small sample size, 20 games, but he's batting, I think, a 950 OPS,
Yeah,
over
just let's
300
keep it up.
batting average. If he keeps that up, Orioles going to look like geniuses.
I mean,
Getting
they've already
potential
looked
two
like
All-Stars.
geniuses the way they've been drafted in the last couple of
Yeah,
years.
but Spencer Torkelson has, I'm a firm believer. I think he'll get better, but he's one of the reasons why I've been not performing this year. Because if he's performing like Bobby Wood, this team would probably have 55 wins right now.
Yeah, maybe. So,
anyways,
that will wrap
to the
up
next division.
the AL Central. Will bring us to the AL West, and this has been the most up and down division all year. Probably, I might say this is probably the worst division in baseball right now. I think the NL Central is a little bit better in terms of team wise.
Maybe.
Here's why I say that. So remember how the Astros started this season? They were horrific. It looked like they were going to. I think they were 19-30 or something like that. Maybe over 10 games under 500. It looked like they were not going to make the playoffs. And I'll give them credit. This last month or two, they've been playing amazing, and they're now 4 games over 500. They're 1 game back of the division. The Mariners are leading this division, but they have been playing some horrific baseball these last 2 months. And remember how I said with the White Sox, how their leading hitter has a 264 batting average? Julio Rodriguez has around the same batting average for the Mariners. That leads their team. They are hitting also at a horrific rate right now, right at the season. And the fact that they are still in first place just shows how good their pitching rotation is. They probably have the best rotation in all of baseball, but without any hitting, it's not going to be sustainable for them to win a division or even make the playoffs this season. So they've got to get some bats at this upcoming trade deadline. Maybe even look at Luis Robert to try to add to their outfield. The Rangers, we know, have been a disappointment so far in the first half of the season. They've been dealing with some injuries most part of the year. So maybe they get healthier in the second half and maybe make some moves at the deadline. And we kind of expected this from the Angels and Athletics. It's just been a rough going for them this first half of the season. But at least the Athletics are moving to Vegas soon. So I guess
I have something to look forward to.
Well, yeah, considering what's going on with your team, yeah, maybe that's we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Any comments about the AOS and what's gone on so far for this first half?
Mike Trout being injured sucks because I've always kind of vouched that he wasn't an injury-prone type of guy. It was just really he had 1 or 2 freak injuries, and now it's starting to look like he is injury-prone. If this is the end for Mike Trout, meaning the end of his prime, one of the greatest 10-year stretches in baseball from a pure player-wise, not team-wise, because obviously he pretty much has no accolades outside of MVPs and All-Star games and Silver Sluggers.
All he has is that one playoff appearance. That's it.
He has, one play. I think it was his second year in the league, maybe.
It was.
One Rookie of the Year. Yeah. So if this is the end of Mike Trout, that we know it, top 50 player of all time, can we say that?
It's tough because he's such a great player. He's like another one of those like players that was 5 tools, like could do everything for you. I think
Listen, if he was a Yankee or a Dodger, he would be a top 5 player of all time. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I mean, obviously getting involved in the postseason is a crucial part of your success for your Hall of Fame stature. The only way Mike Trout's going to be able to, be considered one of those greats, he's got to win a championship, and he has to leave the Angels. That's the only way it's going to happen. He's never going to win a championship with this team.
He's condemned there till further notice.
Well, unfortunately, he did it to himself by signing that contract. In fairness, I don't blame him for signing that contract because he got a lot of money, but that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes when it comes to this stuff. So that pretty much wraps it up for the American League. As I mentioned, the Guardians have the best record in the American League by just a half game over the Orioles. Guardians lead the AL Central. The Mariners lead the AL West, and the Orioles lead the AL East. Johnson, do we want to make our picks for the American League in terms of who wins the divisions and the wild cards? At least updated-wise.
Updated-wise.
Do you want to keep what you have?
Let's do this right now. I mean, I'm going to keep what I have right now, but just from a pure... Listen, because at the end of the year, I said, this team's going to win or this team's going to win. I'm going to really stick with that, but however, just for the purposes, I'll let you start off, and I'll give my picks next.
I'm only going to have to make some new additions because 2 of the teams that I picked are probably not going to win their divisions. I still think Baltimore wins the AL East. I think they're a better team on paper than the Yankees are. For a Yankee fan perspective, hopefully they at least make some moves to the deadline to help their hitting. I think the Astros win the AL West now. The Mariners have scared me too much with the way they're hitting. I think the Astros are playing some good baseball, unfortunately, from my perspective. So I think the Astros take the AL West. And for the AL Central, I'll go with Cleveland. I thought Detroit maybe could get it going. Maybe they could pull off the upset, but they're just not there yet. Cleveland's playing too good right now. I think they they hold on to the division lead over the Twins. So that's at
So,
least all I
what's
have for the
crazy?
divisions.
I had Baltimore, Houston, and
You
Cleveland.
did.
I'm not changing anything.
I wouldn't change it at all.
I had the Yankees as a wild card. I had Seattle as a wild card. And I had the Rangers as a wild card. I'm not going to change anything.
You're going to keep it?
I'm keeping this.
Okay. I think for my wild cards, I have Yankees, Astros, and Rangers. I'm gonna change one of them, or two of them actually, because I have the Astros winning the division. I'll keep Yankees. I'll go with the Twins.
Put the Mariners in there.
I don't think the Mariners make the playoffs.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with the Twins. I think the wild card that they have right now with the Red Sox and the Twins also is a wild card. I think that's how it ends. I think that's how it is. The way we have the standings right now for the American League, those are the teams that should make the playoffs right now if that was the way to go.
I'm pretty content with my predictions.
Yeah, no, you
halfway through the season.
You definitely crushed it in the American League. I can tell you that.
I definitely crushed the American League,
Yeah.
but yeah, this was the NL not so much, but definitely
up and down.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the NL, and we talked about. We mentioned this team earlier. At least I mentioned this team earlier. The Philadelphia Phillies, best record in all baseball. They have an 8.5 game lead over the Atlanta Braves for the NL East. They've just been insane right now this season. They look to be the favorite to win the World Series. They're doing a lot of good things hitting wise. We saw Alec Bohm, what he did in the home run derby. He's been a sensation for the Phillies this season. They have guys like Harper. I think they had the most All-Stars for the first time in maybe a near decade. I think they had 8 All-Stars represent them this past All-Star break. So the Phillies are doing great things. The Braves, even though they're 8.5 games back, they're still 11 games over 500. They're still doing some good things as well. Obviously, losing Acuna early on in the year to that torn ACL is a brutal loss for them. It is a big reason why they're currently in second place. The Mets, I mean, you talk about roller coaster season. I mean, how about the Mets this year? They started off looking to be a mid 500 team, and maybe they could compete for 80 wins. Then they had a horrific month of May, and it looked like they were going to be selling at the trade deadline, as I mentioned earlier on. And then June happened. They had Grimace throw out the first pitch of the game, and the Mets at these last couple of weeks have just been playing some inspired baseball, and they hold one of the last wild card spots in the National League. And they've gone now from sellers at the deadline to buyers now probably at this deadline. And as I think realistically for the Mets, if they want to get into the postseason this year, they got to add some bullpen. That has been a huge reason why they've had some struggles this season. They need someone to get the ball to Edwin Diaz in the 9th inning.
And lose Diaz?
I mean, he's been better of late at least.
Yeah, he has. He's been
that's
improving.
At least that's a good sign for the Mets, but they really need some bullpen help.
Yeah, he was absolutely horrific to start the season.
Because you cannot have Adam Ottavino
the last 5 games,
guys like that.
He's been lockdown though.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And then to wrap it out for the division, the Nationals are not there yet, but having guys like C.J. Abrams is a good start. James Wood recently got called up for that team, so you're starting to finally see the pieces from the Juan Soto deal coming into fruition for the Nationals. So they're probably a team to look out for the next couple of years to be maybe a contender in the National League. And Johnson, I won't sugarcoat it. It's been a rough year for the Marlins.
What do you mean? We've been having a great year.
You have the second worst record in all baseball.
Yeah, that means we're, one of a team that's worse than us. And maybe for Rockies in a month.
The Rockies being better than you, which I didn't think that was the case originally, and then I looked at the standings and that was the case.
We could be for White Sox.
Do you have a trade destination that you would like to see Jazz go to? Because it's probably going to happen.
Staten Island Ferry Hawks, is that an option?
I wish it was.
How about the Binghamton Rumble Ponies?
So you want to be a Met?
Not particularly, but if we had to trade him in division, I'd want to be a Met first. Then I'd want to be national.
Right.
Then I'd want him to never play baseball again. And then there's 2 other teams I won't talk about.
So there's a story going on with Johnson and I where if Jazz got traded to either a team like the Phillies or the Braves or the Dodgers. I think you said the Yankees too.
I would live with the Yankees. I
All
wouldn't
right,
be happy with
you
it,
wouldn't be
but it
happy,
wouldn't be.
but yeah,
It's like I don't really have beef with the Yankees. Like it's not like, oh my god, I despise the Yankees. It's like, all right, whatever. He's a
like
Yankee now.
you've made the story that wherever Jazz goes, you're most likely going to go with them because that's probably the final straw with you with the Marlins.
Yeah, pretty much. After Pablo Lopez and Sandy, and
Louis,
just pretty much not buying into
the
anything.
Luis Arias deal, I felt like should have been the final straw
That was almost the final straw.
because
It was
that was
close.
bad. That was a great pickup for the Marlins. Like, listen, it was for Pablo Lopez, but you got a great hitter out of it, and they traded him to San Diego, and they're just setting the rebuild. Like they're going further and further into the rebuild. This is a year after they just made the playoffs.
Yeah, it's why it made no sense
I
whatsoever.
think that
After not doing pretty much anything, having a lackluster
I
offseason,
think
to put it lightly.
I think yeah, let's put it lightly. I think the biggest problem for them has been the injury issues. I mean, your top five, starters are all on the
Yeah,
IL.
they're done.
I think three of them are on the 60-day IL. Like they're done for the season.
Yeah, pretty much. Maybe you get Sandy back in
You
September,
get, who's
and
the number
you
one? Edward Cabrera right now.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's rough.
he's supposed to be the number 5, man.
Yeah,
Nothing against him, but he's supposed to be the number 5.
yeah. Guy got healthy. I mean, listen, you get healthy next year. You have the rotation in place. It's just what are you going to surround them with hitting wise? That's the problem. That's really been the Marlins' issue. These God knows how long since they traded, Stan and Yelich and all like Azuna, all those guys. Like that's been the issue for them. They can't hit the ball. So we'll see where Jazz gets traded at the upcoming trade deadline. The NL Central will move on to the next one, and I'll admit this division has surprised me just a little bit, at least at the top end of the division. The Brewers are 13 games over 500. They've been playing some inspired baseball. They've been getting some great contributions for the rotation, as well as getting some good, overall contributions for their bullpen as well. And they've been surprisingly doing well hitting wise. I think they have a plus 79 run differential this season, which has been, in my view, really, really shocking considering that they lost their manager, Craig Counsell, in the offseason. And you would think that, it's kind of, I guess, inspired and sparked this team to do better this year. William Contreras has been great for them. You've seen guys like Reese Hoskins been up and down for them this season, but still contributing at a certain rate. Christian Yelich still, he's still going with the punches. He's still doing great things for them. And they have a 4.5 game lead on the Cardinals, who it looks to be have come back from that horrific 2023 season they had last year. They're now in second place in the division. They hold one of the final wild card spots in the National League as well. But they definitely need to get some help at the trade deadline if they're going to ensure that they're going to secure one of those final wild card spots. But I think the team that everyone is kind of rooting for, Johnson, maybe in this division, maybe you agree or disagree with this statement, it could be the Pirates. I think everyone has really jumped on that Paul Skeens train, and he has a great opportunity potentially to maybe win the Cy Young this season as well. Do you agree with that sentiment?
I think he'll come back down to earth.
You think so?
I don't think he'll. Yeah, I don't think he'll stay there forever. He's an absolute phenomenal talent.
Right.
I said it earlier in the year. I said he'd be called up. I didn't expect this early. I figured maybe around this time he'd be called up.
I thought maybe September call up or next year.
I was thinking post All-Star break, depending on how they were doing.
Here's my question to you.
Killing it, but he'll have to come back down there for a little bit.
Do they pull? I hate to bring this up to you because I know what happened last year with Yuri Perez. Do the Pirates potentially do that with Skeens? Do they put him on an innings limit, or do they just let him ride and try to maybe sneak in as a wild card team because they have a good chance?
Nah, they should full send it.
Okay, I agree. I think they should try for it because he's by far one of the more popular, at least popularity wise, he's one of the most popular players in baseball right now. He even got the star in the All-Star game this past week, so there's definitely some hype around this team right now, and they still have a good amount of players surrounding them. I mean, they still need to make some moves at the trade deadline if they want to have a chance, if they're going to at least try to make the playoffs this year. But I would say that it's been an up and down year for them. They had a good start to September and They had a good start to April, and then, May and June was kind of, up and down for them. Rounding out the division, the Reds have had some issues as of late in terms of Defense. The defense has been a big reason why the Reds have been struggling this season. They're 3 games under 500. They still have a chance to make the playoffs this season. Ellie De La Cruz, 40 stolen bases is certainly, nothing to be short of. He's had an unbelievable year for Cincinnati.
Think he goes for 40-40? He's at 17 home runs. He'd have to catch up a little bit.
I don't think he gets there this year.
30-30?
30-30, I think, is very possible. He was, remember, on pace to maybe break, a bunch of records stolen base-wise, and then he kind of, slowed down these last couple weeks. Yeah, he was stealing, I think he had, 20 or 30 stolen bases at the end of April. It was something that, absurd. And then, I think, the last month of June, he kind of, simmered down and was, keeping his pace. But a 30-30 year is definitely possible for him.
He needs 13 home runs in the next 80 games or so. So
it's definitely possible. And then rounding out the division, you have the Chicago Cubs. I would say they are definitely one of the more disappointing teams for me this season. I thought for sure,
I would say so.
I thought for sure that they would take that next step. You had Council coming in as a new manager. You had Amanaga, I think that's how you pronounce it. I always forget.
Shota Manga?
Yeah. He had an unbelievable first 2 months of the season. And the last 2 months of the year have been pretty brutal to him. He did make the All-Star game, but, man, he was pitching lights out for the Cubs to start the year. And he kind of had the same fault at the same time the Cubs have had. You look at their hitting wise, they've been struggling in terms of some of their key players batting average wise.
Ian Happ is Ian Happ and Seiya Suzuki, and Cody Bellinger's been hurt, but he had a very hot start of the year.
Yeah, Horner's been all right for them. Morel is pretty much a strikeout, a home run guy for them, so that's really what his role is for the team. Dansby Swanson's just having another rough season for them, which is really hurting because you gave him all that money a couple of years ago to lure him for the Braves.
Is it crazy if I'm going to say that Ian Happ is their best player right now?
That's tough.
He's got a .8 OPS. He's got 57 RBIs. He's got.
He's
doing pretty good.
I would say it's him or Nico Horner. I would say it's one of those.
Horner's been rough though, man. Horner's been rough.
His last couple of games have been tough, but he's still a good contributor for this team. I think the biggest thing for the Cubs going into this upcoming deadline, I think they're going to be sellers personally. I don't think they definitely could make the playoffs still. I just feel like the reason why I think they might be selling is look at who they have Pete Crow Armstrong in there. They have him on the major league roster. He's kind of like that fourth outfielder playing for them, but for a fact they want to play him more often. I wouldn't be surprised if they trade a guy like Seiya Suzuki or Mike Tauchman at the upcoming deadline to a team that needs an outfielder to try to get Pete Crow Armstrong some more bats and make sure that he's in the outfield because he's a good defender in the outfield for them. That pretty much wraps up the NL Central. Any other comments for this division as a whole?
No really comments here. It's a very tight division, so no one's really out of it. Right. I think I had the Reds winning this division, if I'm not mistaken.
You did, yes. I had the Cubs.
I'm still going to go with the Reds, man. Even though here's a spoiler, I'm still going with the Reds because they're only 8 games back, and all these teams are really just punting around 500. I mean, Milwaukee has 13 games above 500, but 55-42 isn't really that strong. So I'm still going to stick with the Reds for my prediction, but any final comments for you?
I'll make my prediction for the division after we wrap up the NL West. Other than that, this division hasn't been pretty. I know I just said a few minutes ago that this division is better than the AL West has been for the most part this season, but they're still realistically, it hasn't been a great division overall. I mean, you have 3 teams with negative run differentials, and they're still all mathematically, having a really realistic shot at making the postseason this year. So they'll all need to have good second halves of the season if they want to have an opportunity at some October baseball. So, well, I don't know what they do with the deadline. I know the Cardinals maybe could use another pitcher. The Pirates need some offense. The Reds could use maybe another pitcher as well. The Cubs, I mean, if they don't decide to sell, They probably should go after another pitcher as well. And the Brewers probably should get another bat. I think they have a good enough pitching staff, even with trading Corbin Burns this past offseason. I think they still have good enough rotation wise to make it into the playoffs this year. But to round out the National League, we'll go into the National League West. I think no surprise we knew the Dodgers would be in this spot going into the All-Star break. I think no one really expected them to be the second best team in the National League record-wise. Maybe that's maybe a little bit of a surprise. But they're still playing some great baseball. They're 15 games over 500. Ohtani looks to be the MVP favorite right now in the National League as well. You can't really say much bad things about this Dodgers team, unfortunately. There's just so many good players in this team overall. And they're still doing this without Mookie Betts, who's been out for most of the season as well. So that's really the only thing the Dodgers have to worry about is getting these players back from injuries. Guys like Glass now are currently hurt. Walker Buehler is currently hurt. Kershaw is still hurt. They just lost Dustin May again for the rest of the season. Yamamoto now is on the 60-day IL. They're still waiting for Max Muncy. They're still waiting back from Betts and Jason Hayward as well. So Dodgers need to get healthy, and they'll be in a great spot come October. They'll probably make some moves at the deadline. Most likely look out for them to maybe try to get a guy like Luis Robert, as I mentioned earlier, or unfortunately, Johnson, maybe a guy like Jazz Chisholm. So we'll see.
No thanks.
The rest of the division-wise, we have the Arizona Diamondbacks. I would think maybe it's tough to say because they're in second place, but maybe you could consider them a disappointment because obviously this team was in the World Series last year. They added Eduardo Rodriguez and Jordan Montgomery this past offseason to bolster that rotation. And let's face facts. I mean, Rodriguez has not pitched at all this season. He's been injured for the most part, so that's really hurt them in that aspect. And Jordan Montgomery has been brutal. There's no sugarcoating. He has an ERA above 6, which is a big reason why the Diamondbacks have been losing some of their games as well. You've had some good contributions out of guys like Ketel Marte and Christian Walker. That's no surprise. Jock Pearson's been a nice addition for them this past offseason. Gurriel's doing some good things. Unfortunately, Corbin Carroll has gone that sophomore slump, so they're hoping to have a good second half of the season from him if they want to make it back to the playoffs this year. But for the Diamondbacks, I think it's going to come down to their pitching. If they can get guys like Morel Kelly back from injury, they need Zach Gallen to have a monster second half. He kind of had an up and down first half of the season. And if they get some bullpen help, because we saw the last couple of weeks, Paul Sewell blowing a couple saves for them, that's got to be worrisome for this team if they want to get back into October baseball. They might need to add maybe another reliever or two if they want to get there. You have the Padres right now, also in second place in the NL West. They're tied with the Diamondbacks. Their season's been weird in the terms of their pitching has been probably the reason that they're in this spot. Because you're getting great offensive numbers. Arias has been a great addition. Cronenworth's had a better season this year than he had last year. Machado's doing Machado things. Jurickson Profar having a breakout year, made the All-Star team. You saw Jackson Morrell having a nice season as well. Tatis, up until he got hurt, was doing great things as well. And this is all without Bogart's really doing much for them. He's hitting under 240 on the season. And you look at the rotation, that's probably been the downside for them. Dylan Cease was who they acquired before the season started. He's had a roller coaster year. An ERA just under 4 with an 88 mark. You have Michael King, who his first full season as a starter has been all right for them this year. Matt Waldron, the knuckleballer, has been, for the most part, good enough to give them some quality innings. Joe Musgrove currently hurt, but did not have a really good, strong start to the season. And they're still needing some bullpen help. I think pitching is going to be of top priorities. And they've been mentioned a bunch of times with Garrett Crochet from the White Sox for this upcoming trade deadline. So would not be surprised one bit if Crochet is paired back up with Dylan Cease in the next couple weeks with a potential trade from Chicago to San Diego. And then to round out the division, you have the Giants, who I think have been a disappointment this year. They added Jorge Soler. They added Matt Chapman. They added Blake Snell, a bunch of guys that were top free agents this past free agency, and they've all pretty much underperformed. Let's face facts. Chapman's hitting under 240. Soler's hitting under 230. Blake Snell has an ERA above 6, and he's been hurt for most of the season. And Logan Webb's been great. He's still doing all right for this team. You have a great lockdown closer in Duvall, but other than that, you look at their lineup, and other than Heliot Ramos and Patrick Bailey, and maybe Lamont Wade, I guess you could put him in that category as well. They cannot really hit the baseball. They have been struggling all season when it comes down to getting runs on the board, and it's hurt guys like Logan Webb in their rotation to get those wins. And the Rockies are just the Rockies. I can't really say any good things besides maybe having Ezekiel Tovar. That's probably the only bright spot for the Rockies this season. So maybe Ryan McMahon gets traded. Maybe. I think that's pretty much it for the National League West. Any
and I think that can.
about that?
The only thing I will say about the Padres is if Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts were playing half as good as they were last year, they'd probably have 60 wins right now. They've been absolutely atrocious.
Bogaerts has been
the worst of his career.
Yeah,
I'd say Machado the worst of his career too.
It's funny because like Machado, like 267 batting average is still not bad, but it's not it's not what Machado the Machado we're used to. I think you're starting to finally see that age coming towards him because I think he's got to be above 30 years old now, 31 maybe,
about 30,
32.
31.
Yeah, he's 32 years of age right now. He had you got to think about it also. He had 258 last season to end the year, so his batting average got up a little bit, but you're starting to finally most likely see the decline in production for Machado, which is why the Padres are trying to make sure that they can maybe get another postseason run or two. But to do that, they got to add some pitching depth if they want to have a chance. So
I think that kind of that clears up our second half review.
Do you want to make predictions real quick for the NL? Do you have any changes for that?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna swap the Phillies and the Braves. I'm gonna have Phillies as the division winner now. I'm gonna take the Marlins out as my wild card and put the Braves in there.
Oh God, I forgot to put that. Oh God, I'm sorry.
I'm still gonna stick with the Reds. I'm still gonna stick with the Dodgers as division winners. I am still going to stick with the Cubs and Padres as my other wild card spots. Still think they could make the playoffs.
So I'll do the same with the Phillies and the Braves. I'll swap those out. Dodgers will still have winning the NL West, and I will swap out the Cubs for. I'll go with the Brewers. I just trust their rotation too much to see them choke in the second half. So I'll go with Milwaukee to win the NL Central. For the wild cards, I'll have the Braves. I'm going to give the Mets the benefit of the doubt. I think they get one of those final wild cards. They are known to have one of the easiest strength of schedules for the second half of the season. So if they get past that schedule without any faults and don't falter, and unfortunately, no offense, Russell, I know you're going to be listening to the show at some point. In typical Mets fashion, hopefully they don't have a second half collapse. I think they don't have it this time around. I think they make some moves at the deadline and they get one of those final wild card spots. And for the final wild card, I will go. I'm going to go with San Diego. I know I said at the beginning of the year that the Diamondbacks will get it over them, but I think the Padres will probably get Garrett Crochet at the upcoming trade deadline, and that will help them get into the postseason this year. So I'll have the Braves, Mets, and Padres as my three wildcard teams for the NL. So that's going to conclude our first half recap as well as our predictions for who we think will win each division and wildcard for the second half of the MLB season. Any notes, Johns, before we go into the next part of our show?
None whatsoever.
I'll do a quick recap of the past All-Star break. Teoscar Hernandez, we saw win the home run derby in a thriller against Bobby Witt. So fortunately for me, it's kind of weird, Johns, because we made the predictions this past Saturday who might win, and I said Teoscar as a kind of a
joke,
kind of as a joke, but I said, you know what, why not? And then I proceeded to, place.
Connor Henderson had the worst pitcher of all time, and then ruined the All-Star.
Zach Britton's brother was really
I don't want to. I don't really want to talk about that.
We're both.
They ruined the home run contest. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care. This home run contest was the best case scenario where it came down to the final pitch because this was awful. Oh, you got to give him a time limit. Listen, give everyone a time limit. If they want, they should be able to hit 90 balls in 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think
they should be able to get Tommy John at the end if they wanted to.
I think the only thing here's what I liked about it: the top 4 advancing. I like that. I like that. I don't
That's
like
fine. I have no problem with
because
that.
like the bracket. That's why I didn't like the bracket sometimes because there would be guys that would hit like 20 home runs and the other guy hits 22 and that guy's eliminated. But some other bracket matchup is like, oh, this
There were
guy hit
years we had
16 and 13.
31-29.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So I don't
That's fine. I have no
I
problem
like
with
the
that. But
top 4 moving on.
the
That's
limit,
perfect.
the pitch, the limited amount of
Yeah.
pitches you get, that's awful.
Yeah, you had for those who don't know, you
You
had
reward. You are hindering actual the purpose of
well,
this contest to hit as many home runs as possible, not to strategize it. It's like, oh well,
you can't take
if I hit
pitches.
17 now, yeah, exactly.
That's the problem. If you take pitches, that takes one pitch off of you, and then you have to swing at something that's really,
Awful.
not a pitch you want to swing at. But that's I don't know. They the whole All Star Week is something that the MLB is gonna discuss about this offseason. Because not only that, then you had the All Star game itself, which was fine. There's nothing wrong with the All Star game itself, except for the jerseys that they were wearing, because those were god awful. Those are some of the worst looking jerseys I've ever seen. They need to just go back to the teams wearing their own respective uniforms for this game, and maybe you'll make the All Star Week better. I mean, I don't know. I think for the Derby itself, you experimented with it. We'll have to see if the players liked it, but there's been some backlash over it, so who knows
From
if
the
that was
fan
good
perspective, it was awful.
For the game itself, the All Star wise, we saw the American League defeat the NL 5-3. Jaron Duran hit a 2-run homer to give the American League the 5-3 lead. They would hold on for that win. So American League once again wins another
the
All-Star
first home
game.
run for the Dodgers in almost 30 years.
Right, and no surprise that he hit the home run to put him up 3-0. So it looked like the NL was going to maybe get the win, but the American League with a good come from behind win to win that American League. American League to win that All-Star game for the American League. That's why I was going with that sentence. I think the final part of our show, Johnson, is I think just maybe picking who's going to win Cy Young and MVP and going about who might make the World Series if we want to update our picks for that.
All right, so I had in the beginning of the year Heston Kjerstad winning Rookie of the Year, Yamamoto winning Rookie of the Year with Paul Skeens as my backup. I had AL MVP as Mike Trout, and then Gunnar Henderson number 2, Shohei Ohtani, Manny Machado for VNL. I curse a lot of these guys. Framber Valdez and Pablo Lopez, Spencer Strider and Zach Gallen. Neither of those are possible. None of these are possible at this point.
Yeah.
Houston getting the AL, Dodgers getting the NL, Dodgers over Astros. That's what I had.
For me, I had AL Rookie of the Year Evan Carter, and he's been unfortunately hurt this season for the most part, so he's not going to win it. And then I had Nolan Schanuel as a backup. That certainly has not paid off. I had Yamamoto win the NL Rookie of the Year. Then he went on the IL, and Paul Skeens has been sensational. So, and I felt good about Monica after the first 2 months. I thought maybe that was gonna work. Then the last 2 months of the season happened, so that's not gonna hit. AL MVP, I had Juan Soto. I mean, he's been great.
It's possible.
Definitely not possible the way Aaron Judge has played the first half of the season. I think it's a foregone conclusion. Judge is going to win MVP this year, barring anything unfortunate, which I'm knocking on wood right now that it doesn't happen. Then I have Bobby Witt as a backup. Witt's been great, but again, doesn't really have a chance with those other guys. NL MVP, I had Fernando Tatis. He's not going to win it. He had a good year, but not good enough to win MVP wise. I definitely, I guess we could call it the mushing hour. I definitely mushed Austin Riley because he's probably had his worst statistical career season this year, even though he's still hitting around like 250 and has a bunch of home runs. But it has not been a good year for Austin Riley. The only good thing I can gloat about is that Tariq Skubal, who I picked for Cy Young, is probably going to win the Cy Young, barring a bad second half of the season. And then the NL Cy Young, I had Zach Gallen. So, yeah, you and I both had Zach Gallen, so it's pretty much an L for us on that one.
Hey, well, I will say is at least Heston Kjerstad improved from when I spoke about him.
Yeah,
that's a positive, right?
Yeah. You can say that. Do you have a new pick for Rookie of the Year?
It's Wyatt Langford. It's either Wyatt Langford or Louis Gill.
Yeah, I think it's Langford probably.
Colin Cowles is probably the dark horse, but it's probably Langford.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be Langford as well.
How about for NL? It's Paul Skeens.
It has to be Paul Skeens. I don't think
that was my number 2 pick.
I don't think much of the debate.
Shout out to Russellville for calling Wyatt Langford in.
Yeah, True.
in April. So good job, Russ, on that pick.
Now, Russell picked the right Ranger. I picked the wrong one. It's a good job.
It happens.
It does happen a lot. How about for MVP? Any updated pick for that?
Oh boy. That's a good question. I'm gonna defer to you. I'll let you pick first.
Obviously the AL. I'm picking Judge. I don't think he loses it. I don't think there's a way. NL, I'm going with Otani. It's not much of a debate. I think Otani wins it.
I think
I don't really see
that Gunnar
number
Henderson
two
still
option.
has an outside chance. So to be different,
All
I'm gonna
right.
pick Gunnar.
All right.
He was my second pick, and it's Otani. It's
Yeah.
the Shohei Otani reward from now
You
on.
got Otani right at least.
Wow, that was hard.
I tried giving Tatis the benefit of the doubt, and I thought maybe it was going to work. At least, fortunately for Russell, he picked Acuna, and he got hurt maybe the first week of the season. So,
Monkey Paul.
Yeah, maybe Russell. I don't want to say Russell did it on purpose because he's a Mets fan, but just
And for Cy Young, this
are
is gonna sound crazy.
you not going with Tariq?
I think it's gonna be
Tarek.
I think it's gonna be Tarek Skubal or Tariq Skubal out of the AL. But out of the NL, I think it's gonna be Chris Sale.
Yeah, I can see that definitely happening.
He's had a career renaissance this year in Atlanta after being hurt and being bad on Boston the last couple of years. He's looking like prime Chris Sale again.
I know.
So I'm gonna go with Chris Sale here, actually.
Yeah, Sale has been unbelievable for the Braves this season. That was a huge get, and considering that they didn't really have to trade much to get him, that's a reason why the Braves are in the spot where they're one of the wild card teams and they have a good chance of winning this postseason.
This is probably his best year since 2018 or 2019.
I think the year that they won the World Series, probably.
That was 2018, then, right?
I would say probably since the World Series year where the Red Sox won is by far his best season yet. For me, I'm going to stick with Screwball. I did that for fantasy purposes, picking him at the beginning of the year, and thankfully it's kind of paid off. So I'll stick with Turek. I appreciate his efforts this year.
Remember, he was never bad the last couple of years.
He just wasn't.
He just was always hurt.
Right. For the NL Cy Young, maybe I'll just be different. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to pick Paul Skeens.
Paul Skeens, I think, is the dark horse here. I think it's a two-man race between Chris Sale and Zach Wheeler, but I think you'll definitely see Skeens getting in there too.
Now, remember, this is always the mushing hour, so something bad's going to happen probably to one of these players, folks. So just keep that in mind. Just think about it. Some of the players that we have picked at the beginning of the season either have had their worst statistical year or they're currently hurt. We've realistically, each one of us have gotten one award right. So take everything we say right now with a grain of salt.
So I think for pennant winners and / World Series, give me, I guess, Dodgers over Phillies right now.
That's in the NL?
Disgusting. Dodgers over Phillies in the NL. Excuse me. I think it's going to be I'm going to go Dodgers. I'm not going to mush it. I want to say Yankees. I'm going to say Dodgers Orioles.
Okay. Well, I had Rangers and Dodgers in my worlds. I had the Rangers actually repeating, so I don't think that's going to happen.
Yankees, Orioles, obviously in the
AL. Okay. I'm gonna pick the Orioles to be my AL pennant. I think they beat out. I hate to say it. They're probably going to beat out the Astros. The Astros more like I just sense a second half running coming for them. I want to trust Cleveland that maybe they get there, but I'm worried about their rotation come the postseason, which is why I don't really know where they're going to be come postseason time in terms of that. And I'm not going to bother with the Yankees because if I pick them, then I'm going to mush them. If I don't pick them, maybe I get some luck, but no, my luck is not going to happen. Regardless of that, I have the Orioles representing the AL and the National League. I originally had the Dodgers. I'm going to stick with the Dodgers in the National League. I know the Phillies might be the newer, sexy pick for some people because of how good they've been playing all year. But I think the Dodgers, they're going to get healthier, and I think that's going to lead to them getting back into the World Series this year. So I have Orioles and Dodgers for this upcoming Fall Classic. So who do you have winning the World Series in yours?
Oh, I said Dodgers over Orioles. Okay. Yeah.
So we both have the same World Series, what you're saying.
Yes.
That's good. You know what? Screw it. Give me the Orioles over the Dodgers this year. Why not? Why not them? I know it's not going to happen. Do I say Dodgers over Orioles just to fully mush it?
Yeah, why not?
No, I'll stick with Baltimore over Dodgers. Why not? Um, any final comments then about the first half of this MLB season and what's going to happen? Anything you're looking forward to maybe in the second half of the season?
Yes, for Marlins be eliminated so I can go on with my life.
They might be eliminated next week, buddy.
Yeah, pretty much.
I hate to laugh, but how about for the people on the show? Do you want to rank your top 5 teams of who you might join as a new fan base? Maybe some of the listeners can make some pitches towards you to be
Las Vegas, Las Vegas, Las Vegas, Las Vegas, Las Vegas.
Automatically Oakland, Las Vegas Athletics, I should say.
It depends on what team Jazz gets traded to. I'll like evaluate.
All right, so it's either the team that Jazz gets traded to, or it's going to be Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Okay, you heard it here first. But you could try, folks at home, if you want to make a pitch towards Johnson to be a fan of your team, or let him be a fan of your team. Why not?
I'm not accepting applications for Braves, Phillies, Dodgers.
Those. You might as well just say Yankees. I know you don't want to be a Yankee fan.
Yeah, I'm not going to accept Yankee petitions.
It's fine. I'm not going to bother.
Yeah.
All right. So there you go. Those 4 teams don't even try to bother. The rest of the 26, or actually I should say 25, because the Marlins are going to be out of that conversation. Yeah, make your pitches towards us, towards Johnson. Maybe he'll join you on your next adventure, I should say. Yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Any final comment shots before we wrap this one up?
Hopefully it can be Marlins fan until the end of the year, and then we lose Jazz in arbitration for whatever reason.
That's what you want?
Yeah, pretty much, because that'd be the most Marlins way ever.
All right.
Getting no value.
At least you got the Knicks coming up.
True, we do. We do have the Knicks.
Tyler Kolek season incoming, as well as Mikal Bridges. Remember the last time we recorded an episode was way back when the NBA draft happened, and there's lots happened in the NBA since. We'll definitely preview that once the season comes around.
Weeks.
But Johnson, we are getting closer to football season as well, so college football and NFL season are coming around the corner. I know at some point maybe we do a fantasy football special as well as we did last season. So we got some things cooking up here on the All Gas No Break Sports Show the next couple of weeks and months as we get towards kickoff for both college football and the National Football League this upcoming 2024-2025 season. But for tonight's show, that's going to do it. For Nicholas Pavona and Andrew Johnson for the All Gas No Break Sports Show. The first half of the MLB season has concluded. The All-Star break as well has concluded. We now get into the second half of the MLB season. What will some of these teams that are currently in playoff position do as they try to make their push towards October? What trades will they make in the next couple of weeks? We'll discuss that on the show in just a few weeks of what they might do and who they might add, but we'll have to see what they do up until then. This has been Nicholas Pavona as well as Andrew Johnson for the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week.